The tradition usually is to have a panel discussion when we have these awards, which precedes the award ceremony itself. And this year the theme is Disability, Triumphs and Challenges. So we'll have a panel discussion which will be moderated by the chief guest here, and that's also a tradition. So let me introduce Mr. Santosh Babu. Mr. Santosh Babu is a medical doctor turned IAS officer of the 1995 batch of the Tamil Nadu cadre. He is an alumnus of the Government Medical College in Thiruvananthapuram, or some of you know the place as Trivandrum. He is also a Chevening Gurukul scholar from the London School of Economics and Political Science. And he's also got a degree from the National University of Singapore and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Now, Mr. Santosh Babu is not an ordinary IAS officer. He's an extraordinary IAS officer. He's a man who is known for his innovation. And as somebody said, or if I've read somewhere, innovation might probably have suited him as his middle name. So he's Mr. Innovator. He doesn't consider any posting or a punishment posting as a punishment posting. Every posting is seen as an opportunity where you can do better and innovate. He now heads the Tamil Nadu Handicrafts Corporation, and he's been there for a couple of years or so. And during his tenure, the brand Boom Puhar, known to many of us here, Boom Puhar is the brand name for ethnic gifts and articles and artifacts that you buy and gift people. So Boom Puhar has now entered the e-commerce and social media space thanks to his initiative. And all these ethnic gifts are just a click away with a new hybrid app for smartphones. The marketing team apparently now flaunts iPads and the products are barcoded, and he has managed to get an MOU signed with the Indian Post Department for orders and delivery. Incidentally, Mr. Babu was also posted by the Election Commission of India as an observer for the Jammu and Kashmir polls a short while ago, he was there for about 3 weeks. I'll just give you an example of the kind of man he is, the kind of person he is. When he was collector of Krishnagiri, Mr. Babu created India's first rural BPO in Hosur for Naxalite-affected youth and developed a tracking software which is called Back to School, back T2 in figures, school.in, to locate and bring back school dropouts through what he called a convergence of schemes, funds and functionaries. Then earlier, as Managing Director of the Electronic Corporation of Tamil Nadu, ELCOT, and as Director of E-Governance, and later as Secretary, Information Technology, he ramped up the State Data Center, turned the Tamil Nadu Corporation for Development of Women into the state's first paperless government office, and ensured that citizens who usually run hither and thither for common documents like your community or nativity certificates didn't have to do that, but they could apply for them online and get digitally signed printouts from their homes or offices or from public browsing centers without having to visit government offices, and it's mentioned here, without having to grease palms. And apparently, according to Mr. Babu, what should happen is files, he says files, your paper files should and can move at the speed of thought. So that's how fast he works. And I've got that experience because whenever I call him, he returns the call or he SMSs or he replies. And the other instance is, he says he remembers his tenure at the horticulture department as one of the most fulfilling. When the government was doling out 100% subsidy for micro irrigation projects, as commissioner then, he says he found that people were taking the grant without establishing the units. And to plug the loophole, he came up with a novel geosensing technology tool with which he used mobile phone software to track the installation process with data compression photographs as evidence to release payments. This is just a sample of some of these, of the 150 odd initiatives he's taken as IAS officer in the street. in the state of Tamil Nadu. But his best moment, your best moment, Mr. Babu, has been when President Abdul Kalam referred to you and quoted you in 2012 in New Delhi under what was then called the Committed Leadership Program. So Mr. Santosh Babu was recognized even then, that's 5 years ago. When someone saw the invite and saw Dr. Santosh Babu's name written as chairman and head of Tamil Nadu Handicrafts Corporation, there were 2 or 3 people who asked me, why Mr. Babu, who's heading Tamil Nadu Handicrafts, what does he have to do with disability? But he's also done some disability work in any case. So I said, wait and see. Now after hearing this background, I think all of us should wonder, why not? So over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the nice introduction. Actually, I'm sweating in my that very wonderful introduction. It's a little embarrassing, but thank you, sir. Thank you for that very excellent intro. It's an extremely nice privilege to be among August Company in front of such senior people like Kanwar sir, Madam Jaya, and Madhu sir, and of course, Ms. Jeremy England, incidentally, who is from New Zealand. And all the people here, including one of the most senior IAS officers sitting here, Mr. Sundaram. He retired as Secretary Government of India. It's an absolute privilege to be among all of you. My job is well cut out, Shashi sir said, and I know the time is a constraint here because there are 3 speakers whom we should listen to. Because the TII RIN Awards are for a subject selected for humanitarian purpose. That's why the ICRC is here. Mr. Oberoi is also here. I'm so happy that this is being done because in our own little ways we do certain things as district collector, and even in Handicrafts Development Corporation we managed to get 16 lakh rupees for the mentally disabled children to become skilled in handicrafts. We gave it to an organization called VXL, being run by an excellent lady here in Chennai. This is an opportunity for all of us to see how we can focus on this area which is not much focused on, and especially because the media is now trying to put its finger on it. So I wish to thank Mr. Shashi Nair because his absolute meticulousness. I've never seen somebody like him for everything. Sir, I've learned meticulousness from you. I would like to, kind of flag a few points so that the discussion goes in certain particular directions. I think December 16th of 2016 was one of the flagship days for all of us, all of the people who are in the disability sector. That was the day when the new act was passed. And one of the journalists I was reading on the media saying that, this was the only legislation which was passed in a much otherwise washed out winter session. This is the only legislation, but media never focused on it except the online media. So why was that happening? Incidentally, all of us are potentially disabled people. I was playing badminton, I fell down, part of my bone had to be cut out. Now my hand is actually disabled, I can't carry a heavy weight. So we are all, in a sense, waiting to get disabled, either physically or as we age, we all become disabled at some point of time. So I think that ability to empathize with the disabled, the people with disability is one of the, I think, human qualities that we should all have right from our upbringing. I think some of us have had that opportunity to be told that everybody who is like that also is an absolutely normal human being, and we should treat them that way. So one of the things which has happened is 1995 the act was more welfare oriented, if I'm not wrong. But over a period of time it has evolved, legislation has evolved to become a rights-based approach. So that's the big change that I've seen, apart from the 58 amendments that have happened. Newspaper coverage was heavy, not much there. There have been more additions to the list of disabled, that's what I'm told, from 8 to 15. But one of the things which disability activists, because I was speaking to Dr. Aishwarya the other day, she was telling me that there are 26.8 million disabled as per the 2011 census. But the World Bank says there should be something like 80 million. And 24 million is the population of Australia. So we have more than the population of Australia or New Zealand in India with people with disability. So this is important. See, I was looking at handicrafts. When I joined the organization as chairman and managing director, I was asking, who are my artisans? But none of my people knew, because we are dealing with basically middlemen, 900 to 1,000 odd middlemen, and we had no record, so to say, about who are the artisans. So that gave us rise to the idea of having an e-repository of artisans. Now we are collecting, having one web page per artisan, which means 2 lakh web pages. We are trying to create 2 lakh web pages per artisan. It's on tnartisan.com, which has been released with Honorable Chief Minister. Why I'm saying is that for me to start any intervention for artisans, my artisans, I need to know who they are. Suppose they say, Government of India says, we want to do something for tribal artisans. With one click, it's possible today. Earlier, it was not possible. So today, I think Government of India, through the Sugamya scheme, is trying to give an identity to all the people who are in the disabled sector, and trying to get them all into a database. So that database is very important. I think this 26.8 million becomes the right figure. One of the other things which I was reading about was the economic loss of not including the disabled from the workforce. This is a study by ILO, this is in 2009, which says that we lose something like 1.42 trillion US dollars because people are not engaged in workforce. So this is something on which the panelists would like to ponder over. The cost of exclusion is much higher than the cost of the welfare measures that we undertake. What are the health issues? I think Madam Dr. Jayashree would definitely speak on that. What are the health issues that are affecting the disabled, the persons with disability? I don't know whether I'm using those words interchangeably. Persons with disability, that's rights of the persons with disability. And what are the employability skills that we are trying to give? Lots of people have skills. Sometimes we say that these people don't have the ability to work, but they proved that 90% ability they have when compared to the others who are normal. And I was speaking to another person yesterday, and he was telling me that these boys and girls will sit in the office and work throughout, whereas our people just go out in between for so many times that so much of work loss is there, even though they are supposed to be able-bodied, etc. What is the sensitization required in the media? So that's one question probably Kanwar would like to answer. And one of the things is that charity begins at home. How many disabled people, people with disability do we employ in the newspaper sector itself? That's something you would like to do. Because when we speak about this, we say that 4% of the population, 4% of the government workforce have to be from this people with disability. But there's no mechanism to actually enforce this. If that seat is vacant, can it be carried over? Is it possible to carry over that vacant seat to the next year? What if it's not done? So what if infringements of this act happens? How is that to be countered? So those are the things that I thought I would flag here. In the Pumbhat Handicrafts Development Corporation also, we are trying to do our little bit for the persons with disability. We would like to welcome any suggestions that we can do, because it's a very, very small sector, not great things that we can do there. But even there, I think people with mental challenges, etc., can be trained. So those are the areas I thought I would flag. I'm sure, and I have the privilege of introducing all these 3 panelists who are eminent in their sectors. Shall I do it one by one, or sir? Or as we? Okay, I'll introduce now. Mr. Kamalendra Kanwar has had a checkered journalistic career spanning 4 decades. For a major part of his career, he is editor or resident editor of prestigious newspapers, and has, besides running the editorial function of the papers, been associated with molding budding young journalists to fine-tune their inherent strengths. Post-retirement, and he was here in Chennai for 9 years, from I think 2001 to 2009. Welcome back, sir, to Chennai. He writes regular columns and editorials for some newspapers and is settled down in Bangalore. Among the prestigious engagements he has had, Kanwa sir has been editor of the New Indian Express based at Chennai for 7 years, editor of the Times of India at Ahmedabad for 4 years, resident editor of the Undivided Indian Express, prestigious Mumbai edition for 5 years after 2 years stint as resident editor of his Andhra editions, resident editor of Free Press Journal at Indo for 3 years, senior associate editor of the Tribune, Chandigarh for 4 years, grade A journalist of New Straits Times at Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on a 2-year contract, besides some other stints. For about a year and a half, Kanwa sir was head of corporate communication for India in Standard Chartered Bank, Mumbai. Sir has authored 4 books, 2 of which were on Gujarat, Icons of Gujarat Industry and Trailblazers of Gujarat, which won him plaudits. Besides, he has penned some research-based studies for Ahmedabad Management Association, which were duly published. Kanwa sir has taken journalism lectures at KC College, Mumbai, and at journalism departments in Indore and Hyderabad. He has travelled widely to US, Germany, and Japan for invitations from their respective governments, and to UK, France, US, Cyprus, Denmark, Nigeria as part of prime ministerial delegations, both during the times of the former Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Dr. Manmohan Singh, besides his tours abroad or visits with his family. Sir told me, and I had an introduction in the morning, he said that he would like to talk about the attitudes towards disability and the general perception of the public towards this important area. Mr. S.R. Madhu is a writer, editor, photographer with varied experience. He has served the United Nations in India and Africa, the American Embassy in Bombay and Delhi, the Times of India and the Economic and Political Weekly in Bombay. He has published several hundred articles in newspapers, magazines and UN publications in India and abroad. He is busy at present with book writing and consultancies. I had a look at, he presented me with a book, and is active with institutions such as Rotary, the Madras Book Club, MS Ramanathan Research Foundation and South India Heritage Program. Mr. Madhu was an international staffer with the UN for 15 years and a consultant for 10 more years. He has set up information department in 2 regional UN projects in Chennai and in Harare, Zimbabwe. The first, the Bay of Bengal program, covered 7 countries of South Asia. The second, known as ALCOM, was active in 9 countries of Southern Africa. Ms. Madhu wrote, edited and produced books, reports, newsletters and brochures for the past 2 decades, organized audio visuals and video films and traveled widely in the project area. With the American Embassy, Mr. Madhu was the deputy managing editor of Span magazine in New Delhi and as an English editor with USIS Bombay. He covered the visits to India of US President Jimmy Carter and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and met American investigative journalists Woodward and Bernstein of Watergate fame. He has written and produced several publications for the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, including a book on 20 years of MSSRF, a book on mangroves, a book on eco-friendly employment, and most recently a book on Women's Biotech Park. An absolute repertoire of different fields of work. Academically, Mr. Madhu has a degree in economics from Pune, postgraduate diploma in journalism Bombay, for which he was awarded the Times of India Gold Medal, a certificate in photojournalism Parsons School, New York, and certificate in communication Cornell University, New York. My God, what a repertoire you have, sir. Dr. Jaya Sridhar, you don't need an introduction to her. She's a medical doctor by training. She's a former special correspondent who covered health and medicine for Frontline. She's now freelance contributing in English and Tamil mainly for Junior Vigilant. Dr. Jaya teaches health journalism at the Asian School College of Journalism. She's a former technical advisor to the Internews Network, an international media development organization. She is a founder member of the Center for Security Analysis, where she works on issues relating to health security. Dr. Jaya won a gold medal for reporting on HIV for the Harvard AIDS Institute, part of the Harvard School of Public Health. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have on this awards day function, obviously, at the end of the function will be congratulating the award winners on the articles and the photo session. But we do have a panel discussion right now. We have an eminent, as you've seen their introduction, very important people in their own rights. So I'm sure at the end of that you will have some questions and they will give some answers. Let's have a very lively session. I wish to thank Shashi Nair sir for giving me this opportunity. Not much that we all are able to do in the disability sector. But given an opportunity, this is what I have told a function earlier, I would like to become Commissioner of the Disabled. This I have told openly earlier, because there's so much of work that we can do in a very dynamic way to change the way they perceive governance. And for me, governance is the area of specialization. I would like to ensure, and I'm sure it may happen, that most of the services that you would like to access can be accessed online, which is, you need not go to some part of the city to ask for an application form or fill it up. It should all be done online. And for that, the database is most important. I think that's happening. Government of India, the state government, I was going through the policy note of the government of Tamil Nadu. There's not an area of disability that's not been covered. It's an absolutely wonderful document. I was myself fascinated that so much of money is going into it. And obviously, the concern would be whether those monies are being spent the way it should be. But otherwise, government of Tamil Nadu is prioritizing this sector as seen from the policy note. And I would end there, and I would then request the speakers to speak on the area of interest on this sector, but on the issues that I flagged, for example, the price of exclusion, the GST issues. I'm sure that's one area which you would like to highlight, because the GST has impacted the sector very badly. 18% is what she would want to spend on a car if she wants to buy, and that has not been reduced for these drivers. And a lot of money is now going to will have to be spent from the pockets of these people, because there are so many calipers, so many instruments that need to be bought. And I think a lot of them met with the finance minister and requested them to actually reduce or make it zero, the GST part of it. So there are lots of issues that need to be discussed. I'm sure the three speakers, the eminent speakers, will take it forward from here. Thank you very much. I would request Kanwar sir to start the discussion.
Colleagues on the dais, the very dynamic Shashi, who's been an old friend, as he mentioned, Mr. Babu, who's done tremendously good work, as I could gather from his introduction, Mr. Jeremy is very much involved with India now and is an asset. Jaya and Mr. Madhu, both of whom were excellent colleagues on the awards panel, with whom I found interaction very stimulating and rewarding, and friends in the audience. I'm delighted to be back in Chennai, where I spent a good 8 or 9 years of my life during my career. It's not seldom that I get to hear praise of Chennai, because my wife and my daughter both fell in love with this city. And I try to bring them back to Bangalore, which is the place where we have finally settled. But they seem to come back to Chennai ever so often. I also had a pleasant stay here. Well, talking of disability, I would rather call it, all these people, I mean, it's not a new expression, it's been used so many times, the differently abled. There is a balancing factor that God has when He denies a certain ability to these people. There is something else He compensates them with. And I can say so with a degree of confidence